Here you go. Boom. I think we're live. Let's
Oh,
let's make
cool.
Oh god.
No, exciting. Are you
Alright.
sure it's live? It's not live for me.
Wait, it should
Oh,
say.
yeah, I can.
Yep.
Okay, let me just turn the sound off. Okay.
Awesome. Oh, okay, so wait for a couple of people to come through and then we'll start doing the audio.
Okay.
Alright. Okay. So, Karl, do you want to just say something quickly and see if people can hear?
Hello. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Testing.
This is when they say no. Car's a bit too loud. Okay, let me turn it down. Right. Do you want to try saying something again?
Hello. How's it going? Testing, testing.
See, I told you this is the joy of the of the show.
Yeah.
Much better. Perfect. Awesome.
Good.
People can hear you. Okay.
Good stuff.
So, hello everyone, and welcome to the final indie dev chat episode. I'm here with ThinMatrix or Karl, of course. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about devlogs and full-time indie game development. So, Karl, do you want to explain, who you are and what you do?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Karl. I've been doing indie game development full time for about 6 or 7 years now. I've released one game commercially, which was Equinox in 2018. And I also have a YouTube channel called ThinMatrix, where I've been posting devlog videos about my game development journey since about 2013. So I've been doing it for a while now.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I think everyone here can say that, like, you're the years that you have been doing it, and especially on YouTube, it's really been quite motivating to see your work. But yeah. Uh, so to begin with, then, what do we talk about first? Do you want to touch on how your day-to-day life sort of looks?
Yeah, sure. So I have I start off with quite a schedule in the morning.
Mm.
I usually get up at about 7, and then I have a whole list of stuff that I do every morning. Mostly involves watering plants, actually, and planting new sprouts in the kitchen. And then I do my emails. I do half an hour every morning answering emails and comments. I like to do that just during one slot of the day instead of like having it open all day. And I used to do that, and then it became very distracting, always
Yeah.
looking, oh, have I got another comment? So I do that in the morning for half an hour, and then I move on. And then I just program. I usually start programming at about 9 and just do whatever needs to be done. I don't really have a strict schedule during the day, so I just program mostly when I feel like it and take breaks when I feel like it. Yeah, there's not too much else to say because I just program when I want. I take
Yeah.
breaks, go running most days,
Mm-hmm.
do some exercise, have lunch, do a lot of cooking, and yeah,
Well,
repeat
I
day
think
after
I
day.
think that works. That also goes quite well into one of the first questions, which is, what is your routine for making your devlogs?
Um, it's a bit different now because since I started this new game, I'm working on a city builder game now. I changed the way I do devlogs a little bit, but previously with Equinox, I was doing them almost every week. And for that, all I would really do is whenever I'd implemented something and I was about to take a break, I'd just pick up my camera, film whatever I'd just done and talk about it quickly for 20 seconds. And I'd just do that all through the week. And then usually at the weekend, on a Saturday, I'd put all that footage together and edit it together into a devlog. Nowadays, I don't actually do it. Because the beginning of this new project has been a little bit dull. There's been a lot of slightly boring backend stuff.
Yeah.
There hasn't really been enough content to do it every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So I've just been filming whenever I have like a highlight to film.
Yeah.
And it's been less of a diary format. If you've been watching the devlog videos, you might notice that in the new videos, I don't put the time of day anymore. I used to like have 2:45, 3 o'clock, so you could see what time everything was. But now it's not really in days anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't do that. But yeah, I just film, and once I've got enough footage, I take a day off programming and do some editing.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much all there is to it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that goes for a lot of, like, I guess DevTubers is the best term. Like, a lot of the workflow is like, like record whenever you make a new like feature or something. And if you're doing a lot of backend stuff, as you say, it's very boring. And I'd say it's like the most difficult to really convey in an entertaining way, right? Like if you're just doing bug fixing, like nobody really cares unless it's like a funny bug or something. Like nobody's really gonna be too interested if with super technical things.
Yeah.
So, like what is your like I suppose how do you sort of combat that? So like if you're just working on backend stuff right now, would that mean that you're gonna do footage like afterwards, or would you include some of the technical side of things? Like,
so in the past, this was actually quite a big problem that I had when I was working on Equinox, because I really wanted to do a devlog video every week.
Mm-hmm.
And so often I would have these days where I just had boring stuff to work on, because a lot of programming, you do have to do some boring stuff. And it didn't really work with the devlog videos. And because I was doing a devlog video every week back then, I kind of ended up letting the devlog videos determine my programming schedule. So I was like, I should really be fixing all these bugs today, but I did some boring stuff yesterday as well. I really need to implement something interesting for the devlogs. And there were even times where I'd actually do a new feature in the game just for the sake of the devlog video, so that there'd be something interesting to show in the video. And that's why this game, I'm doing things a bit differently, and I'm only filming when there's something interesting to do. So instead of letting the devlogs, dictate what I'm programming, and that dictates the devlog videos. So these days, if I'm doing boring stuff for 2 days, I just won't film for 2 days, and then I'll start filming again when I've got better stuff to show.
Yeah, I think that is definitely like the best workflow. And obviously, like back when you do like consistent videos like that, like weekly or like bi-weekly, however you do it, the problem with it is that you do not know what will happen within that week or within those 2 weeks. Like you could have a whole 2 weeks of back-end stuff and nobody's gonna care, And so I do think that, like, obviously, like the problem with YouTube is that you do have to be somewhat consistent to even like get noticed a lot of the time. And as a result of that, you do have to make the videos in a consistent way like that, where you show off some boring stuff, because otherwise you can't get enough devlogs out that would cater to the YouTube algorithm. So
it's definitely difficult at the start.
like it is a really difficult thing to like get going, I'd say. Like I think though, once you establish some sort of like thing with your viewers, like where you clearly aren't just you're not releasing devlogs just because you have to. Like when it shows that you're releasing them because you've done stuff, I think it shows that you care a little bit more about them, which obviously creates a bit more of a personality to your YouTube channel. So it's definitely a juggling act.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
I think I've especially gone more towards that, the quality rather than quantity now.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, back in the day, I was definitely like, I need to get a video out every week,
hmm
otherwise the YouTube algorithm's not going to like me anymore.
yeah. It would just turn its back on you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a harsh thing to combat. Um, so Salt actually asked, going back to a while back when you were mentioning about watering your plants. Salt asked, are you still making the plant watering app, or slash will we get a release soon? With an eye
Um,
emoji.
I I don't know. I finished it and it works very well on my phone. I know that if I want it to get to work on like different display sizes, I'll have to do a bit more work on it. Um, Maybe I'll do it at some point, but to be honest, I've since seen that there are quite a lot of apps that do exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
So if you want that kind of app, you can already get it. You know,
yeah.
you don't have to wait for mine.
But I do think that like as a software or game developer or whatever it is, like a really good thing like about it is that if you want to make an app that, or if you want to make something that other people have done, but you just want to make it for yourself, you sort of can. It's like it's quite. That's why I love about it so much is that if you're just like, oh wow, there should be a new, I don't know, fitness app or whatever. You could theoretically make one just for yourself. And
Yeah,
I think that's what makes it quite enjoyable.
yeah, definitely.
Okay, so a question from Peter. Ever thought about making a game in Unity or Unreal to not bother with the back end of an engine?
I like the back end stuff. I know I called it boring just a little, just a while ago, but no, I do enjoy making my own engine. It's one of the bits of game development that I find the most interesting. I
Yeah,
love working with all the really low level stuff and optimizing,
yeah,
working out how every pixel should be calculated and how the bytes for every vertex are going to be represented, and am I going to batch them this way? So I don't. I like doing it like that. I would consider it in the future though. To be
yeah,
honest, I've never tried out Unity or any engine, so I should try it out at some point. But I like making things from scratch in
yeah.
general. I find it part of the journey.
Well, I think that like when you are working in like the back end stuff, like especially like when you're working low level, I think one of the most enjoyable things, at least for me, with game development, is a lot of the stuff that goes into like researching stuff, like researching the topics and how you go about it, and like making your own like solution, like catering
Yeah,
to that. I think that's what makes it enjoyable, because I mean, I haven't really worked in like the back end that far, but like I'm sure if I did, well, I'd probably lose my mind at first. But like I feel like it would be an interesting experience in some ways. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, definitely. And you get to understand so much better how all the different things are working. You know, if I want to have shadows in my game. I can't just tick a checkbox and
yeah,
have shadows, although that would be quite nice. But I had to really understand the logic and the maths and the shader code behind it.
yeah,
And it is interesting, and you do get a really, really good understanding of how everything in a game works and how how costly different things are to
yeah,
use.
yeah. And you obviously have much more control as a result of that.
Exactly. Yeah, you have
You
all
have
the
all
control you can
control over it. Yeah. Yeah, so, like some engines, they automatically do optimizations that you may not necessarily want. And I mean, I can't think of an example, but there may be something that like is automatic, and you have to really dig into like the source code and stuff, and it's all a bunch of a mess if you don't know what you're talking about. So
Yeah.
I
And
think
especially that I'm working a lot on low poly games, they have very different requirements from, really ultra realistic looking games.
yeah,
So I can really, when I'm making my own engine, I can really develop it specifically for what my game needs, which in my case, it could be quite different from what a high definition, ultra realistic game would need.
Yeah, yeah. No, that is most definitely the truth.
I should just say though, I probably wouldn't recommend to make your own engine unless you're specifically interested in engine development. Like
Yeah.
if I was starting now, I would definitely just use Unity. But because I've now had like 7, 8 years experience with making my own engine,
Yeah, you sort of know what you're doing. Yeah.
it's okay now. But if I had no knowledge and I was starting now, definitely just use Unity.
Yeah.
A lot easier and quicker.
Yeah. I mean, I think in some cases, like, like especially if you're just trying to challenge yourself or something as like a little like test, you could obviously just delve into it a little bit and just be you could dip your toes and you'd be like, you know what? No. I think
Yeah.
that is the beauty of like any development practice is that you do have that freedom. Like if you want to do a specific thing that people may not necessarily recommend, you can always dedicate like a couple days to it if your time allows for it. And I think that's what is so fantastic is if you want to learn something most of the time you can if you really put your mind to it. But yeah, Peter's asking, how is your health?
Yeah, it's fine at the moment. I had a big checkup recently. Had a CT scan of everything, and yeah, the doctors were satisfied both with my tongue issues and my lung issues. All good. So yeah, all fine. And I've been doing a lot of running recently. I've been really trying to get fitter to make sure that my lungs are as healthy as they can be. And I've been running or cycling almost every day.
Yeah.
And yeah, feeling good. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
thanks for asking.
Yeah, I mean it's always the most irritating thing when something like that just hits out of nowhere because it's not something you can control. A lot of things you are able to sort of prevent. But yeah, no, like my mom has had a lot of issues with her health, and I know how much it affects like just daily life and whatever it is. So yeah, it's really irritating. Um, so this is sort of these are two questions, but they answer each other. So Jack or Bargy asks, why did you end up writing games in Java specifically?
It's just because at university where I studied electronic engineering and computer science, we mostly learnt about Java. We did a little bit of some other languages, but it was mostly in Java.
Mm-hmm.
And then I hadn't really got into game development at all until 2 years after my second year of university. I suddenly had the idea for my first game, or my first game that I never released, which was Soccer One, which I wanted to be an MMO RPG. And I just suddenly had this idea for a game one day,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I was obsessed with it.
Mm.
And I remember we were on like a weekend trip, so I didn't have my laptop with me, and the whole weekend I was just thinking about this game, and I'd like developed the whole game in my head by the time we came back. And the first thing I did when we got back is I Googled like how to make MMO Java, because Java's the only thing I knew. And then like loads of stuff came up like you can't, it's too ambitious, don't do this, don't do this.
Yeah.
So just scroll past them. And then I was like, here we go, how to make a 3D game in Java. I'll start there. And I found some tutorials about making a 3D game in Java. And that was how I began. That was the beginning of Soccer One. And then I pretty much made devlogs from there. So you can go back and see the whole thing if you want. But it was just because I knew Java at the time. I started making Soccer One. Java was the only language I really knew. So it went from there. And now I've had so many years of experience with Java and no experience with any other languages. So when I'm choosing like what language do I want to use for this project, it's kind of got to be Java because I don't know anything else.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, the other question sort of is already answered by that question, but it's probably answered this before. What language do you use to program and what languages do you know? So do you know anything else other than Java or just
Pretty much just know Java. Do I know anything else? I don't think so. No, I if I knew C++, I'd use C++, but I don't.
Yeah,
I do keep telling myself maybe next projects I'll make the switch and I'll learn C++, but
yeah. But
it's
for right
hard
now,
after
yeah.
like 10 years of experience with Java
Hmm.
and none with anything else to not
Yeah,
use Java.
yeah. Well, it would be a bit of like, I think it'd be a shock to the system, like changing a programming language after 10 years. You'd be like, whoa, what am I
Yeah,
doing? Like you'd end up going with the same conventions as Java and then end up
exactly.
like mixing that with C++.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I actually got a question. Would you make an engine for millions of minions? No. Why? Why don't? No. Um, besides game development, what could you talk about for hours?
Probably cooking. I do like cooking. Um, or growing plants and vegetables. I used to have a little farm when I was younger. Not
Mm.
really a farm, but I called it a farm. It was just like it was quite a large allotment
Yeah.
in this unused field that we had at the back of our house. And I turned it into quite a big, I called it a farm. And I grew like hundreds of potato plants and all different vegetables. And then I used to take them to tennis tournaments. I used to play tennis. And then I'd take them to tennis tournaments and I'd sell bags of potatoes to the mothers who were watching their children at the tennis tournaments.
Hmm.
So I could talk about that for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone's asked if there will be a cooking show in the future.
I don't think so. I don't know. I do like the idea of it sometimes,
A
but
cook log.
I'm I'm not really getting enough videos out on my main channel at the moment. So I don't think having another channel would help.
Yeah. I don't even know how you like. I mean, I think the way you do it, where you merge like some of your cooking into the devlogs, really does like. I think that does your cooking enough justice as it is. Like I think having a whole series on cooking,
Yeah,
whatever it is, yeah. Next game's about cooking confirmed.
I've thought about it. I have thought about it in the past,
Yeah,
but I don't think so.
yeah. I mean, I think like the problem with like cooking and stuff is a lot of the time people. Well, I'm talking from my own opinion. Like I wouldn't be very interested in cooking at all. I just I'd turn off.
Yeah,
um, Peter's asking, how is painting?
I haven't actually done any for a bit now. I have a few on the wall there that you can see, but
Oh yeah.
I did those like a while ago.
Hmm.
I don't know. Haven't really found the time to do it recently, but I like the idea of painting more than I actually enjoy. When I'm doing it, I actually get quite stressed because I'm always worried that I'm going to mess up what I've done already.
Yeah.
So, but I like before the painting thinking about what I'm going to paint, and I like after the painting when I can see what I've done. But the actual process, I get a bit stressed.
Yeah, yeah, that I mean I can understand that. Like it's not like you can just press undo,
Yeah.
If you put the wrong stroke in, it could really ruin the painting if you're not careful, yeah. Um how is Rufus doing?
Rufus is great. He was trying to get in a second ago. He keeps scratching on the door. Um, but he's doing great. He's very happy.
That's good. That's good. Um okay then. What else could we talk about? So with Equinox then, I guess it would make sense to ask, what do you think, you wish you could have done differently with the Equinox development, or maybe not differently, or maybe just anything that you think that you've like not necessarily done well enough, sort of thing.
Um, yeah, there were a couple of things. In general, it went really well, and I'm still very happy with the final outcome. Like I'm very proud of it. But um, one thing that one of the things that I get, as feedback the most, was to do with the speed up button. There was a button to change the speed of how fast the game's running, like a speed up time button. And I didn't really want to have it in the game, was the issue, because I thought Equinox was best played just at normal speed for most of the game. But at the early game, you had to wait quite a long time for your trees to grow. So I thought, as a compromise, I'd add this speed button into the game, but it would only work when you hold it down. So you actually had to hold it down with the mouse, so you couldn't really do anything while you're doing it, which then encouraged you to not have, not be in fast mode while you're playing the game.
Yeah.
But for most people, that was kind of counterintuitive to have to hold down the speed up button, because in most simulation games like that, you can just change the speed of the time.
Yeah.
In general, and you can play the game at a different time speed.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people found it a bit frustrating that they couldn't just toggle it on and play the whole game in a faster speed. So I don't know, either I kind of balanced the game to be played in normal speed. So either I should have sorted out that early game to make sure that you didn't need the speed up button, or I should have had the speed up button toggleable and then balance the game to work in fast time as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I took like a compromise, and it didn't really work either way, but it wasn't a huge issue.
Yeah.
And then the other main feedback that I get is that I marketed it as a ecosystem simulation game, and I think it was a bit more of a game than a simulation. So when people were playing, some people were expecting the world to evolve more on its own, whereas I'd developed the game and designed the game to be more that the player has to spread nature around the world and evolve the nature themselves, rather than it just kind of happening in front of your eyes as simulation.
Yeah.
So maybe that was more of a marketing issue. Maybe I used the wrong words. Maybe I shouldn't have said simulation so much. But that resulted in people expecting something different from the game.
Yeah. Well, I think with your marketing that you've just said, what if you could tell people, like, what was it, just devlogs that you did, or what else were what else did you include with your marketing?
It was mostly just the devlogs. It was mostly just my YouTube channel. I did also send out some basic press release stuff to various emailing lists that I found online.
Yeah.
But I didn't, and I sent some emails to YouTubers with keys and stuff like that. But in general, I think most of the people found out about the game firstly through the devlogs, but then once the game had released, it did quite well at the beginning, because obviously I had these people on YouTube that I could put up a video, and the video would instantly get thousands of views, which is a very good marketing tool. And then the game sold quite well at the beginning, and because of that, it started trending on Steam. And then I think other people found it through that, especially YouTubers. I guess they're always looking at what's trending on Steam.
Yeah.
So because it was trending on Steam, YouTubers found it. A few YouTubers played it in the first week, and then it did really well in the first week because of that, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think Steam sometimes doesn't feel like it's doing enough, but if you do get on the trending page, it feels like it's a really good stepping stone, especially if you've just released a game. It usually does a lot. But yeah, so I had a question and then it went. That's always good. uh, Is there anything that you? So I guess going back to when you're talking about the like the fast forwarding and the time manipulation stuff. Um, if you could go back and change how it was, well, not necessarily change how it was, but like, um, if you could go back to when you were like contemplating how to implement it and stuff and what you wanted for it, what change would you have made with your development? Like, now, how do I explain it? Like, what was the sort of hmm. The question didn't turn out as well as I was expecting it to.
Well, I mean, I think I'd have just accepted the fact that the game should have multiple speed settings, and
Yeah,
just gone with it from the beginning, rather than going through developments thinking, okay, the game's only going to be played in normal speed, and then right at the end thinking, but just to fix this one issue, I'll add in a kind of speed up button.
yeah, yeah.
That was the main issue. It was like a quick fix when it should have been something more fundamental.
Yeah, great. So with Equinox, what was the uh, what was the testing process? Because I know you've gone through it a little bit in your devlogs, but I'd like to, I'm sure people would like to know sort of how your testing went, like how you went about it.
So I have this a Patreon page, and one of the rewards on the Patreon page is that they get to try out the game early, which meant that throughout the whole development of Equinox, I was releasing the game basically every month as it went along, which meant that I was getting feedback all the way through as well, which was really useful. And yeah, I think most of the bugs were found that way.
Mm.
And then I just played the game a lot
Yeah.
before release, and that was pretty much it. But it went fine. In the end, when the game was released, there weren't any game-breaking bugs, and there were only a few bugs
Oh,
released. So
that was
I
strange.
think I lost you for a second
Yeah,
there.
that was weird. Ah, but yeah. Um. Okay then. So, what is we've got some questions now. What is your dream project to make?
It's still Soccer One, which was the first game that I tried to make the MMORPG. I still kind of look back on that. If I did it again, I would start again. I think I'd just restart it.
Mhm.
Um, but I still do sometimes daydream about making an MMORPG, although it's such a huge and ambitious project. But maybe one day, maybe one day,
Well, I
maybe
mean,
with a team.
I think it's important, having a dream project or like some sort of like ambition, when you are doing anything, like especially like game development and stuff, because I feel like if you don't have the ambition, like there's nothing to work towards. Like I think you always have to have something that, sure, it may not be like the most what's the word? Like the most the easiest like goal to get to, but having a goal in mind whilst you are doing your development is I'd say it's most one of the most important things for staying motivated. You know, like of course, don't expect to be a AAA company, but I mean, you could do potentially, but it's just obviously having some sort of ambition in your mind for what you would
Yeah,
like to be is super vital. Um,
definitely. And that was one of the most motivating things for me when I was getting started out and when I was working on Suck One. I was so motivated back then. Like it was, I worked so hard on Suck One, especially. So I worked on Suck One 2 years, like part time while I was at university and also while I had a full time job. And then I did 1 year of Suck One full time before I did a Kickstarter. The Kickstarter wasn't successful, which is why I stopped work on the project. But during that 1 year of working full time on Soccer One was the year that I worked harder than I've ever worked before, and I hope harder than I'll ever have to work again, because I was working through the day every day from like 7 in the morning till 10 at night. I scheduled out every second of every day, but I don't remember not liking it. I think I never burnt out or anything, because I was so passionate about this project that I just really wanted it to work.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that having this kind of dream is very helpful for motivation, and that certainly drove me on at the beginning.
Yeah. Cool. Sorry, something just happened in chat. I was like, um, so Games by Soul also has another question. Do you have any plans to join a company or to start your own?
I don't think I'd really want to join a company, because after being an indie game developer and being able to have all your ideas yourself and then work on whatever you want, and also one of the best things about indie game development is that you get to do so many different things, from like the creative stuff, the artwork and animations, to logical stuff and maths and coding.
Yeah.
I love being able to do the mixture, and I love that when I'm bored of programming, I can take a break and do some 3D model making. And in a company, you probably wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
I would consider maybe one day having a team of my own. That would be cool. Maybe one day, but no plans at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. Okay then. What other topics are there? I feel like this whole episode has just been like the most jumbled thing. It wouldn't be any dev chat otherwise. Um, hmm. How do you keep yourself motivated? That's another question.
I've realized recently that I don't really know how to motivate myself on a day-to-day basis. So if I wake up one morning and I'm not feeling motivated, I haven't found a trick to like switch on the motivation.
Yeah.
I think, as I just was talking about with Soccer One, I was motivated because I was working on something that I was so passionate about, and I so believed in the project, and I so wanted it to happen,
Mm-hmm.
that I just didn't have motivation problems back then, and I was working a ridiculous, unhealthy amount on that game. And I don't think I remember burning out at all when I was working on Soccer One. So I think it helps if you're working on something that you really, really care about,
Mm-hmm.
and a project that you really believe in.
Yeah.
Don't just do something because you think it's trendy these days. This type of game is going to sell really well. Make sure it's something that you believe in yourself and that you want to make.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's
Otherwise, it's going to be so much harder to get motivated
yeah.
about
I think
working on it.
the most important thing is making sure your motivation is coming from the right point, right? Like because I know there's a lot of people that especially when I think it's more common for obviously when you're starting out. Like the motivation is that you want to become a full-time indie game developer, and you know, really that's for the most part it's quite unrealistic for a lot of indies to become full-time. Like at least I'd say at least at the start, obviously it's something that I feel like you need to
Yeah,
be motivated.
it's tricky, but I would say that was also, as well as me believing in Soccer One so much, I also really wanted to be able to do game development full time, because I'd kind of fallen in love with it. It was such a passion of mine, and that was a big part of the motivation. This dream of becoming a full time developer.
Yeah.
So it's definitely good to have that dream and to have that ambition to want to be full time, even if it's still a while off. It took me 3 years to be able to do it full time. So
Yeah.
you have to work at it. You have to keep going.
But I
But
think
it's good to aim for it.
yeah, I mean, I think having an aim is very important, as I said with like the ambition thing earlier. And obviously, you got to make sure that your motivation isn't coming from like a monetary like position, I'd say, for the most part, because
Yeah,
I think
don't get
honestly,
into don't get into indie game development if you just to
yeah,
make money.
yeah, like
Because
if
most of the time it's not going to happen.
yeah, and even if you want to make money like outside of indie, like even if it's development, it's a lot harder than is that is said out loud. I'd say, like, I don't think people really talk about it, but like a software developer for a AAA company, it takes a lot of effort to get into that position, and I don't think that it's actually talked about as much as it probably should. Like, sure, you can go in straight from university, but what is the actual chance of that happening like straight away? And when it does, you know, the whole problem with like the crunch and stuff, and there's a lot of big issues in, well, it's a lot of sectors, but it's such a competitive industry, and like I think thinking that you're gonna make a lot of money from it is a really like it's not the best way to look at development
Mm.
as a whole, and it really shades your judgment, it really like clouds how you think about a lot of things. Because you
Yeah,
start becoming too ambitious, and that's what I meant about earlier, is that like you're getting to the point where you could turn selfish from it, and you don't nobody wants that. um
no.
oh, we have a good question here. Do you have a favorite game other than your own?
Um, so I'm actually not that much of a gamer. I don't play games very often.
Mm,
I used to play when I was younger. I played RuneScape all the time, which is obviously why I was inspired to make an MMO myself.
mm,
Um, but I don't play that anymore. I don't really play any games anymore. I'll occasionally I watch a lot of people playing games on YouTube, and occasionally a game will look so good that I'll get it myself. But it hasn't happened for a while. I
yeah.
haven't played anything.
Hmm.
Don't really have time, and as you know, I'm in front of the computer all day anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I
when I
think,
have free time, I don't really like to
yeah,
spend it at the computer as well.
yeah, like these past couple weeks I've been like, trying the whole separating work from like leisure is super important. I do not think that it's talked about nearly enough that it really should be, because honestly, like, it's so easy, especially in these times, like when obviously you're locked down and you're locked into your room, you can't really do anything. It's really important to find another avenue that you can do for extra leisure. Like, you can't just sit on your computer all the time, because it will eat away at you, Um, like, I think it's a couple of weeks ago I started like trying to be a bit more fit and getting outside a lot more and stuff. And honestly, it's surprising how much of an impact, like a positive impact, it makes on your mental health. Like, you don't even
Yeah,
really think it. Like, you may think, oh, I feel okay, but if you're like stuck indoors all the time, it really eats away at you, and it's very easy to like overindulge in that. And I think that when I started doing it, I was like, wow, it's like a completely different world outside of just this one boxed room, and I think it's something that really, like, not many people talk about the positives of it. Like, sure, you hear people saying like, separate your leisure and your work, because it is important, but they never really tell you how or what you're supposed to do. And I think that is definitely a problem. Like, there's not really much direction, and you have to find your own direction to find what makes you happy, which, I guess will obviously lead to much bigger happiness. But I don't know, I think it's definitely an interesting like juggling act.
yeah, for sure. And that's why I think in my devlog videos I do try to show, both sides of that. When you're programming, you don't just have to be in front of your computer all day,
Hmm.
but you can do other healthy stuff as well,
Yeah.
which is why my devlogs have gone more in that direction over the years.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Uh, Rob has a question. How do you control the scope of your game?
I had a problem with this with Equinox, definitely. I kept, for the first 2 years of Equinox, I kept having more ideas and I kept increasing the scope. And then after 2 years, I realized that this project would go on forever if I keep working on it. And so I brought the scope right back. But because I've been aiming for such a big game, even though after 2 years I thought, okay, I've actually got enough content in the game now, I'm just going to finish off, clean up all the loose ends and release this game. It still took another whole year to actually finish the game because I'd been aiming for such a big game that there were so many unfinished things in the game. I got basically way too far away from a finished product. And that's what I've been trying to do differently with the current game, the City Builder. I'm trying to always be quite close to a finished product, and after every, because like so, it's a bit tricky to explain, but starting this project, I scaled down my idea for the game. I had my idea for the game, and then I scaled it down to the smallest possible version. MVP, I think you call it in like business terms.
Yeah.
And I made that, and I'm going to finish that, which is what I'm doing now. I know it's taken a year and a half, but that's
Has it
also because I
actually
had to
been
make the engine and I had the health stuff.
Yeah.
Hopefully for you other people it will go quicker than that. Then once I've made this tiny version of the game, I can make the next step and I can add the next most important features and improve the previous features, and then again I'll have a finished product. Finished products. And then I'll keep iterating like that instead of aiming directly for the final version.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, so whenever I have ideas now, with Equinox, it was different because I had ideas and then I was like changing the direction of my development straight away. But the way that I'm doing it now with the iterative development, if I have ideas for the future, it's fine. But I just think, okay, that's something for the future. I'll get to that when I get to it. But right now, I'm just working on this tiny version of the game. So I don't really need to worry about the scope because I can basically, as long as you're not too far away from a finished version at any point, you can basically stop whenever you want. There is no kind of finished, the game's never really finished. You could always add more, you could always add less.
Yeah.
Like if you look at Minecraft, it was super
super
popular.
simple right at the start. Like
even in alpha, basically. It could have been a finished product then. Yeah, and then
but
at any point over
the
the next 10 years, it could have been a finished product. There is no finished.
Literally even now, like I think if they classed it as finished, I think it would still live on for so many years still, because obviously now it has cemented into like basically everybody's mind of the living like generations, like everyone has heard of Minecraft and stuff. And I do think that like obviously that they were really lucky with, well, not necessarily lucky, but they had a really unique selling point that hadn't been really done before. Like nobody had really made survival games back then. Like I don't even remember many. Like I think Minecraft was like one of the first.
It was one of the first, yeah.
Yeah. I
feel like
I think everyone remembers like straight after that you had a lot of copycats. Like, and I think that shows, how much is important to them. And they still continuously update it. And I think, that their scope is getting bigger and bigger, but like I think the most important thing is that they have a control over it. Like if you like increase the scope of your game and you don't have like you lose control over like how big it's getting, then obviously that is when it's a problem. And again, having a minimum viable product, as you say, is super important to like know what the base game actually is. Like we'll probably get there. Like we'll probably get to that point and then make like some sort of vertical slice, and then that will be like we'll be able to say, okay, we finished at least a little bit of the game, and that's pretty good for us.
Yeah, but I didn't really explain it very well, but I think what I was trying to say is that as long as you're progressing in these small iterations, like the way Minecraft has changed over the last 10 years, it was basically already released, but then they keep adding these small iterations. It doesn't really matter what your final aim for the game is, because you can just keep iterating. And if at some point you decide, actually, I don't need to go that far with it, you can just stop with these iterations.
Yeah.
But the problem is when you have these ideas, these future ideas, and then you start changing the direction of your development right now and start aiming for these distant ideas right now instead of concentrating on the fundamentals.
The here and the now as well.
That's when it's the problem. So implement the fundamentals, then implement the next most important thing, then the next most important thing, and slowly build up instead of having this wild idea in the future and then implementing it now when you should really be working on something much more fundamental.
Yeah. Okay, so another question from Rob. What is a cool new thing that you learned in the last week?
I was trying to learn how to make sourdough bread. If you're asking specifically about game development,
I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be about game development. It could be a
if it's not,
general question.
Well, I was learning how to make sourdough bread, and I was learning how to make a sourdough starter. And I thought I'll try that soon. So that's what I learned in the last week. In game development terms, I haven't really learned anything because I've just been fixing bugs and
doing the
tidying up my code. The really boring stuff, like tidying up the code that you've already written is.
It can be quite dull, yeah. Like, I like to, at the end of each week, I like to, just go through the code that I've written in the past week, because I think that does keep it pretty well optimized for the most part, and it makes it readable, which is obviously the most important thing. To begin with, like, I feel like it's like when you're writing like an essay or something. You make like a first draft sort of thing, and then you go back over it, and then you go back over it, and then it's like refined. And I think it's the same with code. Like the first draft that you do, like especially if you're aiming more towards like functionality rather than it being the best thing in the world, like I think it's important that you always go back, and make sure you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm getting better at trying to write things tidily the first time around.
Yeah, of course. Like
but often when you're getting close to it working, I'm just going to quickly type all of it in now. Just hard code a load of stuff. I just want to see it working. I just want to see it working.
And then there's always
and then when it's working, I'm like, just gonna make it a bit better, and then I forget about that.
Yeah, then there's just this one number that you've just put in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
and you have no control over it. Yeah. Sol has a question regarding full-time indie. He says, curious, as you're a full-time indie, have you registered yourself as a business then?
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
That's the answer. What else is there? Oh god, YouTube sometimes just flicks. It's so irritating. Okay. Does the City Builder game have a name and or roadmap?
It doesn't have a name yet. I haven't been able to come up with anything good. And I also kind of don't want to give it a name yet, because if you Google Equinox, you get a lot of images from really early on in development, because I'd called it Equinox right from the start.
Right.
And obviously most of the stuff I posted about Equinox was when it was in development. So you get quite a lot of images that show it in a not finished state.
Right.
Which
that's an interesting point.
It's not the best if someone hears about Equinox and they want to see what it looks like and they Google it, and then they see a lot of unfinished looking stuff.
Yeah.
It's not great. So this time, I think even if I do come up with a name soon, I'll wait until further in development to actually reveal it.
No, I think that's actually a good shout. Maybe that's what we'll do as well, because I don't want to have that. Yeah, because right now we're just going by Project Spies, which I think works decently enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe that actually is that's a I didn't even think about that side of things, to be honest. um, what other questions do we have? If you had unlimited time, budget, resources, and sourdough bread, what would be your dream game to make? I think
Soccer one,
yeah,
the
probably
MMO.
yeah. How is the business side of things?
In what sense?
I have no
What?
idea. It's that's the question.
I
Well,
mean,
we can wait for him to
like in
elaborate
terms
a bit if you
of
want.
what I have to do, it's the boring side of game development for sure. I have a
Yeah,
lot of calls with my accountant, especially because I'm in Germany. The bureaucracy here, there's so many forms, so many things to sign, and I don't understand the rules at all. So I have to always talk with my accountant. It's very boring.
yeah,
That's the side of Equinox of indie game development that I just
yeah.
wish I
No,
could leave out.
we're doing that as well, and honestly, it's so much hassle. Because it takes up so much time as well. Like it could potentially take up a whole day. Like especially
Yeah, yeah,
you'd be
definitely.
talking to like your accountant or whatever, and like you'd be like, oh my god. Like especially like the whole taxes and stuff like that can
Yeah.
be like, especially when you start, it's really your mind just does not. It's like, what is going on? Because tax in general is a lot different to like the business tax stuff, and that's what's like I think so confusing about it is there's a lot more effort that goes into handling business tax in comparison to just handling like your own personal tax.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
so much more.
yeah. Um, if someone said you're not allowed to do game dev anymore, what would replace it?
Either either cooking or growing stuff. I've always
Growing
kind of
stuff.
I've always kind of imagined I'd be a good farmer. I'd quite like to grow stuff and sell it at farmers market.
Yeah, yeah.
That's my backup plan.
Yeah, that I mean, I think that would be quite a. I think also even if you did that for like just a little while and then came back to game development, it'd be an interesting like learning experience, like seeing how other industries handle like certain things. Yeah, it can really be an eye-opening experience.
I watch so many vlogs from farmers. Like there's an indie game development equivalent in the farmer world.
Oh
There are like
wow.
these small farmers who have like, you know, not that much land and they do it all themselves and they make vlogs
Yeah.
about it as
And they have
well.
a podcast called
And it's
Indie Farm Chat.
they do. I mean, it's not called that, but they do have podcasts and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like exactly the same, but in the farmer world.
Mm.
And I enjoy watching that sort of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that is it, I think it's so interesting like with podcasting. It's like there's so many different like people talking on podcasts for so many different like topics. Like you always see like loads of different like people doing different things, and it is really interesting because like podcasting I feel like is one of those things that is gonna go on for a long time, because again like you can literally bring it up on your phone and just like listen to it in the background, or you can whatever however you do it. um I guess that also goes into a question I have. What do you often just sit down in silence, or do you like to have something in the background going on whilst you're working?
It depends what I'm working on. If I'm
Yeah.
doing like some hardcore maths and shader
Yeah,
code,
then
then
obviously
I
having some
prefer to do it in
yeah,
silence
yeah. No, you just
because
have
there's a
like
lot of
some
thinking involved.
you just have some really heavy rock, heavy metal like going on and you're like typing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing when I'm making 3D models, then you don't have to think too much. Then I'll have usually a podcast on.
Yeah, yeah. Uh what is next? Okay, so this question's funny. What is your dream game to make after the MMO game?
Um,
You're just thinking, I'll go get the
I don't know
MMO game
really.
done.
I haven't got another one. Probably the city builder was the other big idea that I'd had.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I'm quite happy with the project I'm working on right now.
Mm-hmm. Uh, when will you make a farming game?
That's actually how I came up with the idea for Equinox, because I'd been thinking about making a farming game, but there were already so many out there, and I kind of thought about making one where it's less structured. You know, in farming games, you know, everything's in nice, neat lines, and I thought more about ecosystems and growing. It's still about growing stuff. I mean, Equinox is all about growing stuff, but in a more natural kind of setting.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's exactly how I came up with Equinox.
All right. Well, I need to quickly be right back because I hear a lot of weird noises outside and I want to make sure everything's okay. I'll be right back.
Okay, I'll try and answer some more questions. If I can find any. Here, who inspired me to start making devlogs? When I started, I think there weren't very many devlogs at the time. It was when I was just starting with Sock One. I was learning a lot from YouTube tutorials, and I think I came across a couple of devlog videos at the time. There were two main ones that I was watching back then. There were these guys who made a game called Elysian Shadows. I don't know if any of you have heard of that. And there was another team called, I think they're called Still Alive Studios, and they made a game called Son of Nor. And the Son of Nor guys were making these quite short devlog videos, like really professional, just showing the gameplay. And then the Elysian Shadow guys were making these more like the behind the scenes devlog videos that I do now. And it was those two that inspired me to start making devlog videos, because I saw that they were quite popular, and I don't know, I just like the idea of sharing my journey as well. We were just talking about, are you back?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm back. Sorry.
You're back. I was just talking about devlogs when I was getting started,
Oh,
and
yeah.
the devlogs that inspired me to start making devlogs myself.
Mhm.
Have you heard of Elysian Shadows?
I can't say I have, no.
No, I don't think anyone has here. It was back in the day. There weren't very many devlogs at all.
Oh, yeah.
But
Well, I can imagine. I
I
mean, you were one of the first people that truly kicked it off, I'd say. Yeah.
yeah, I think at the time, these guys making Elysian Shadows, they were probably the biggest devloggers at the time.
Mm.
And I think they were my main inspiration. And they also went on to do a Kickstarter, which was one of the reasons why I then decided to do a Kickstarter for Suck One, because they were successful. And these guys that were also doing another devlog series that I was watching, they also did a Kickstarter campaign and were successful.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'll aim for the Kickstarter.
All right. So, question from Rob: what was your greatest game dev failure? Did you learn from it, or are you doomed to repeat it?
That's a good question. My biggest failure, I guess. I guess it would have to be Suck One, because I failed the Kickstarter. Although I'm very happy that I did. Looking back at it, I don't think it would have been good for me if the Kickstarter had been successful, because I was already working like crazy before that, and it was unsustainable, the amount I was working. And I think if I then had the added pressure that people had actually donated money towards me continuing the project, I think I'd have worked myself crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm happy it didn't. But back then that was a tough time because I'd been working so hard for 3 years on this game, and then I did this Kickstarter campaign, and it didn't work out. I was pretty devastated at the time.
Yeah.
But it won't happen again because I don't plan on doing another Kickstarter campaign. So history won't repeat itself.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm still. Oh my god. What is going on? It feels like someone's trying to get in. It's weird. I don't know. If you could tell younger you one thing about game development, what would it be?
Probably, I don't know. Probably to do the stuff I was trying to explain about the iterative development. Start, even if you've got a big project, scale it right down. Start small, get that done, then another small step.
Yeah.
Do it in these small steps. Never get too far away from a finished version of the game, because I think that, especially in Equinox, I didn't do that, and it cost me a lot of extra time and stress.
Yeah.
So I think that's the main tip I would give myself.
Okay then. Got loads of questions to get through. Oh my god. Already answered that one. Have you entered any game jams? Do you have any plans to?
The problem with that is that I make my own engine, and you can't really make your own engine during a game jam. You kind of have to use like a ready-made engine, right?
It's a 10-year game jam.
Yeah, so it's a bit tough. I've never used Unity, so I think I'd have to learn how to use Unity first, and then I could maybe do game jams. I do like the idea of them, but it's a bit tricky when I make my own engines.
Yeah, I mean, imagine they like. I mean, if it was like a requirement from the game jam that like it was like, I don't know, it would have to be a very long game jam. How do you organize your day? I think we've already spoken about that earlier. Have you experienced any major burnout or wanting to quit your project?
Yeah, I did during Equinox. I didn't during SOC 1, as I said. I was super motivated back then. During Equinox, again, I think it comes down to the way that I was developing the game. Instead of doing these small steps, I was aiming for this finished product. And I got so far away from a finished version. It was after the first 2 years, I was just so lost in development that the end was just nowhere in sight.
Right.
And I did start to lose a bit of motivation. And I think honestly, if I hadn't been doing the devlogs and I hadn't had, lots of people watching my development, then I'd probably have just stopped the game and done something else. And I'm very glad I didn't, obviously.
Yeah.
Because I'm very happy with how it turned out. But it was after 2 years, I thought I need to finish this game soon now, because I think I've done everything that I wanted to do with this. But then I was so far away from a finished product that it then took another year of just finishing off loose ends to get it finished.
Yeah.
So that would be avoided by doing this step-by-step development, which I'm now trying to do with the current game.
Yeah. How does it feel to be a pioneer for the devlog genre?
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. I mean, it must be strange thinking that, like, you were officially, like, one of the first people to truly, like, start it up, sort of thing. Like,
I guess so, but it was just because it's just because I did it. I mean, I didn't do anything special. I guess I was just there at the right time, and I just decided to do devlogs. and I just did them consistently.
Mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
think probably the same would have happened to anyone else.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a timing thing, you know. Like I think if you did it like now sort
Yeah,
of
it would
time,
be
it would.
much harder to do
Yeah,
now for
yeah.
sure.
Although then again, like I don't know really. I don't know how devlogs would be without you in a weird way. Like, cause like one of my first devlogs, I did take inspiration from you, which is wow, it was madness a while ago. Um, but yeah. Did you know Indie Dev Chat before Matt asked you?
Yes, I've watched quite a few of the podcasts or the shows.
See, now it's an uncomfortable
Um,
question towards me.
I've watched. I think I found out about it like at least a year ago. I
Wow.
can't remember who I watched first. Probably either, who did you have on first? Like Noah or Jonas? Who did you
Noah
have on
was
earlier?
my first guest. Jonas was probably like eighth or so.
I think I found out about it by watching one of those two.
Right,
I
right.
think probably Noah.
Wow. Well, it is definitely really interesting to hearing that because it's a bit strange thinking that like it's been going on for 2 years as well. Like, it doesn't feel like it's 2 years at all. Because I mean, I guess that's probably because I did take a couple of breaks during that time. But I don't know. Uh, if you went back in time, would you do everything all over again?
Um,
So I suppose would you remake Equinox or would you do something else?
I'm pretty happy with how it's all turned out over the years. I might have I might have used an engine if I went back and did it again. I might consider using an engine straight from the beginning, like
Right.
Unity.
Yeah.
Then maybe I would have got released games quicker. But then
But then
maybe
again, like, I think the thing with your content is that because you make it in your own engine, I think people have a lot more, not necessarily a lot more respect, but they have a lot of respect for people that can make a game in their own engine and successfully launch a game in it.
yeah,
I think,
maybe.
it's a whole nother
Yeah,
step to be able
it's
to do that because, Unity is obviously, or Unity Unreal, whatever, it's the norm to use one of the engines. So going like subverting from the norm is quite important, I'd say, to set yourself apart, and it's probably also why you were able to get a good amount of success as well, rather
yeah,
than.
it's maybe that's why people liked watching the Stock One
Mm,
devlogs back in the day. So maybe if I had used an engine, I wouldn't have been so successful. Who knows?
yeah.
I think I'd just do everything the same. I think it all turned out quite nicely.
Hmm, hmm.
Everything.
Okay, so someone also has a question. Do you watch, first off, do you watch other devlogs or not really?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so his question is, what are some of your favorite devloggers to watch?
DevDuck is
Hmm.
really good.
Yeah,
I like watching his. He has a similar style to my devlogs, right?
yeah, yeah.
Like quite relaxing. Um, also, what's it? BW Dev, is that what he's called?
Hmm.
Making Lumber Mill.
Yeah.
I watch those. Those are good. Um, Danny's videos are also obviously really good,
Hmm.
although he doesn't make devlogs quite in the same way as he used to.
Yeah.
But his videos are in general just really good.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to feel bad because I'm going to forget someone, but I watch a lot, I like watching a lot of smaller ones as well and seeing how they're starting out. I
Yeah.
enjoy watching devlogs in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh
And Jonas's videos are amazing as well. I
oh,
should just
yeah,
say,
those.
especially if you're looking like the videos he does, the kind of tutorials, the tips, they're so good. So if you haven't seen them already, definitely check them
Yeah,
out.
Jonas's videos are like another level there. Yeah. But
So good, so good.
yeah, those are great. Um so I think that roundabout does it for the episode. I don't really want to say goodbye. But thank you so much, Carl, for joining me on the stream.
No
And
problem.
everyone in the chat, make sure you stay back, don't go. um, but yeah, so thanks so much, Carl, for joining on the indie dev chat. I think it's been a good conclusion. Ended it on a high note, and I'm really glad that we eventually got to an agreement for a time and stuff. And yeah, I'm really
Yes.
glad to have been able to end it like this. But yeah, no, it's been an absolute blast. Uh, and hopefully we'll speak again sometime when for whatever it is. But yeah, right then, Carl.
Right.
I'll speak to
Thank
you
you very much
later.
for having me
Yeah.
on. It's been good.
All right.
All right. Bye
Bye
then.
bye. Oh, okay. Well, Matt's about to promote the lame podcast intro thing, I guess. Wow. Yeah, what a stupid podcast. That's true. What a great way to end. Thanks for the podcast, Matt, and awesome to hear your thoughts. In dev chat has been fun. Thanks so much for hosting it. Yeah. Well, I thought I'd dedicate just a little bit of time to just quickly saying thank you to all of you guys. So before you do head off, just yeah, huge thanks to all of you for viewing. We've had some really amazing guests on, some fantastic regulars, and it's been a really fantastic experience. I'm really happy with where the podcast has come. Um, and I think ending off with ThinMatrix is a fantastic way to end it. Um, but this isn't the end of my podcasting stuff. Um, you know, shortly I'm gonna be doing Where's Our Semicolon, which is a new podcast, a little bit like Indie Dev Chat in some ways, but it's with Sol and Hunterson Studio. You can see them in the chat right there. Um, I'll send the link in the chat actually. It should be up, but there is not Devlog, an episode that's coming up. Oh, it is up. Okay. Yeah, so if you do want to watch it, make sure you go over there. And yeah, it would be really greatly appreciated. We are gonna have guests on there soon, eventually. But yeah, no, thank you so much to all of you guys for making this podcast a fun experience for me. I don't think the podcast would be where it's at, 38 episodes on, 2 years later, without having some fantastic questions coming in. I'm really, really like amazed that it's sort of got to this point because I didn't really think of it as like a big thing. Um, but it has really defined a lot of me. It's really helped me out with so many things. I'm like so much happier and so much more confident than I used to be. Back when I started the podcast, my main uh like ambition, I don't know, goal for the podcast was to really improve my confidence, and I think I've basically done that. I am so much more confident within myself. But yeah, no, it's been it's been really great. Um, and yeah, I do not want to cry, but I am close to doing it. So don't make me cry. But if you guys have any questions for me at all, please do put it in the chat right there, and I'll try and answer them. I don't know why you'd have questions for me, but if you do, you can answer them. Um, but yeah, my voice ain't as squeaky now. It's true. It's true. I was 15 when I started. Now I'm 18. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Um, but yeah, no, we've had some fantastic guests. And yeah, it's been crazy. Like, if someone told me way back when that I'd get ThinMatrix on as a guest, I would not have, I would not have really expected that. Um, but can't believe this series is coming to an end. Been following it for such a long time now. Yeah, it's definitely going to be strange. Um, I know you have no favorites, but what was the most fun episode you did? Uh, uh I couldn't say the most fun. I'd say that the most fun ones were Rob Lang was a really fun one to be on, but every guest was equally awesome. I had so much fun with each of them. It's like every guest I had on, I would get so excited just beforehand. uh, did Indie Dev Chat help you get into uni? I think you said something about it when your channel got took down. I think it possibly did. Because having a consistent show for like 38 episodes it's quite a feat, I'm not sure if it definitely helped me with getting into uni, but it's definitely going to help me in the future, I think. And I'd say the biggest thing about it is it's really taught me how to network myself and how to promote myself without, feeling like I'm being irritating. Like, I think it's very easy, especially talking to uh, the first guest I got on was Platform Prod, and when I first got Noah on, I was so anxious because one, he was like an inspiration, and two, I hadn't really done it before. It was really weird. But I think really the biggest thing about the podcast, the biggest thing that I've learned from it is that it's really important to just go out there and do what you can, sort of thing. Yeah, I know the link in the description is for Hive rather than ThinMatrix. I'll fix that later. But yeah, no, I'm really excited to continue my podcasting stuff. I've been doing it for a few years. But yeah, Indie Dev Chat was my successful one, I suppose. But yeah, be sure to stay on this channel because I do have some plans for it. I say some plans, I still need to sort of figure it out. But I'm thinking I'm either going to do like video essays, so videos might not come out as regularly, or like dev talks, a little bit like what Madbook does, because I really love Madbook's devlogs. Or not devlogs, sorry, his videos. Well, actually, I like his devlogs too. But yeah, no, thanks guys so much for sticking with me on the show. But yeah, I've made so many good friends from this. Like, honestly, it's kind of it's kind of crazy like how many people yeah, 38 episodes. I'm amazed by it too. So again, if you do want to watch the next my next chapter, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you tune in. I'm gonna be getting it onto Spotify and stuff too. So there won't be any problems with that. But yeah, again, guys, I keep prolonging it, right? Because I do not want to press the end stream. Like, it's it's a big red button. I don't want to press it. uh, I think the biggest thing for me was that when I was doing like indie dev chat, like the thumbnails and stuff, it was really interesting. Like especially when it was like ThinMatrix, for example. Like the other day, I was like, man, it's so cool. Like putting the thumbnail together and stuff. But yeah. Okay, well, everyone, thanks for tuning into Indie Dev Chat. And yeah, I'll speak to you guys later. We'll do whatever. I'll do stuff. My channel. This is the worst outro. All right, everyone. See you later. Thanks for watching. Oh God. It's a new beginning.